Do you want to know one of Susannah Cole's favourite ever deals, where she bought a property for just over 200,000, spent roughly 40,000 on it, and got a valuation of well over 300,000? Then watch this video. So with today being the first in this new format, I cannot think of a better person to kick this off than the person that I've got on. When I think of deals, this lady is an absolute beast, just a machine for deals. So with this new format in mind, we have Susannah Cole. Susannah, how are you?
I'm really good. Hello, everybody. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I really do need to have a shave, Susannah.
We've been voting. I vote the beard up. I think other people might do too.
What do you guys think? Shall we keep the beard or not?
Keep the beard.
Keep the beard. So this whole new format is totally new to me as well. So what is your favourite deal and how did you find it?
Well, it was a little bit hard to choose because I've got lots of them and there are lots and lots of stories about each one. But I thought I'd go for one of my favourites because it's got a great location, it's got a great story behind it, it's got masses of frustration, it earns really good money, and it's got a great discount and great capital growth. So it's like, okay, let's do that one.
Yeah.
But I could hit you with loads of other ones. But so this one we're going to call the Smelly Dog House. I've owned this one since September 2013, but I had it under offer for about 9 months before that. So it was found through an estate agent.
Yep.
And the initial story was it was a lady who had 9 dogs. She lived on her own, and I now have 5 people in it. So it's got 5 bedrooms in it now, 4 of which are en suite. But one of those is downstairs. So effectively, it's got 4 bedrooms upstairs. So she lived there on her own, but she lived there with 9 dogs. And she was a very sweet lady. However, the dogs never went out. Ever.
Oh, gosh.
Yes. Hence the Smelly Dog House.
Yes.
And therefore, her neighbours got very, very unhappy about the amount of barking and eventually got a cancel order on her that either she had to, the order wasn't that she had to move out. Basically, the dogs could no longer live there. Yeah. And so she was very attached to the dogs, so she sold the house and wanted to go somewhere new. So that was the reason, and I found it through, in fact, my colleague Ash found it through an estate agent because I employed Ash as a full-time sourcer. And so what we would do is we'd phone about 100 to 130 estate agents a week, do 25 to 35 viewings a week, offer an 85% of every viewing we ever did, and then follow up 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So that was simply a phone call to an estate agent. They were like, well, I've got a house that might be of use to you guys.
So when you did that, just jumping in, when you did that initial call with the estate agent, what kind of things were you saying to them?
Have you got something with margin? And they go, is that a 1 bed, a 2 bed, or a 3 bed? And you'd be like, well, actually, my price range is, and say it was like up to 500,000 or whatever the heck the price range was. And then they still, because they've got certain boxes they feel like they've got to tick, and they've been trained to tick. So you've got to understand. And then they go, is that a 1 bed, a 2 bed, or 3 bed? And you go, well, actually, could you tick all of those for me? Is that a flat or a house? Could you tick all of those for me? No. This was further into my journey. So this was about 100 deals in. So by this point, the estate agents knew us, but in the early days, they'll definitely ask you. And so you just have to very patiently give them all your details and never, ever assume that they're going to call you. Always assume that you're going to call them. It's never these. We've got 288 estate agents in Bristol. We've got a list of all of them. And every 3 months we pay someone on upwork.com to refresh that list, because we should be refreshing the list from anybody that goes bust, because we should be calling all of them all the time. Like every 3 weeks, because we should be calling about 100 to 130 estate agents a week. So minimum every 3 weeks, we should have called everybody. So if someone isn't answering, they're not there in business anymore. Yeah. But there's going to be new entrants. So we pay somebody on Upwork.com about £3 an hour every 3 months to just refresh the list and see if there's any new entrants. Wow. Plus, you've got auction houses as well, plus direct to vendor and all the rest of it. But we were mainly estate agents and auction houses. So. Wow. So by that time, they kind of knew us, so we'd be picking up the phone and going, have you got anything for us? Have you got anything with margin? I bought this house and this house. But in the early days, it would just be like, yes, 1 bed, yes, 2 bed, yes, 3 bed, yes, 4 bed, yes, 5 bed would be marvellous as well. Yes, please.
Yes, literally everything that you've got.
Yes, basically.
I will do.
the thing you don't want to do is kind of just suggest that you're there just to renovate houses, because that sounds terribly romantic, and they are going to mentally frame you as, yes, they'll spend money because they're investors, they buy knackered houses. And this one was a knackered house. But actually, we've done some amazing, I mean, we did this amazing deal once that we bought post-auction for £265,000, and it was revalued by Handelsbanken within, I don't know, a couple of months, but basically immediately, but, you know, within a month or two by the time it happened by Rick Surveyor at 405,000 with not a paintbrush in sight. Yes.
Whoa.
So you don't always need to do renovations.
Yeah, sometimes you can just find a really good property.
Yes, exactly. Yes. But this was not one of them. This was a major renovation.
This was a major renovation. So you go doing this viewing, and what is the property like?
Stinking.
Are you any good with dogs? Because I'd be awful.
The lady was lovely.
Yep.
The lady was lovely. To give you an idea, unfortunately, those dogs had been kept inside. So downstairs was all wooden floors, and we had to replace all of the timbers. They were so rotted because of, you know, ...
Yeah.
And then upstairs, and it was the best thing for her to move upstairs to the rooms. The roof had started to fall in a bit and was leaking. So all she'd done was close the door. And then, because if you don't see it, you know. Yeah,
it doesn't happen. It's not happening, is it?
Yeah. So there was quite a bit of roof repairs that we needed to do as well, because it leaked into the property. And then when eventually she left, bless her, she emptied the whole house, and then she put up newspaper on the windows and wrote us a really sweet note going, I've put newspaper in the windows because I'm really worried somebody's going to break in. I was like, oh, sweetheart, that's so lovely of her. But if somebody had broken in, they'd have broken out immediately because it stank so badly.
Yeah, they wouldn't have handled it.
Oh God, it was awful. I mean, our poor builders, they literally had to replace all of the wooden flooring because it was so, you know, the smell was so bad. And it was the dogs, it wasn't her.
Yeah, it was just the dogs. So you're in this property now. How did you know what to do with that property? What was the initial thought? What did you know?
Even that was hard. So it's lovely to turn around and go, yes, I knew exactly what to do. No, it was very hard. So if I give you the figures, initially I had it agreed for 197. Okay, there's an extra bit to the story. So initially it was 197. And actually we were going to source it on as a source deal and take 5% commission. And it was a chat, and it was an amazing, I mean, I tell you, it's an amazing deal. It's in Southville, one of the hottest parts of Bristol. And we had assessed it as being worth about 330 at the time. And we very, very rarely had rude clients, very rare. But this was, 1% of people are nutters. This was that 1%. And often when people buy deals, they get very nervous. And I call it investor wobble. And when you get nervous, you either fight or flight. So very occasionally you will get an investor who's just so nervous, they become a little bit, fighty. So he was like, no, it's not worth it. And I was like, well, I think it is. So he pulled out of the deal and so I said, well, I'm not ever going to let a deal go, so I'll buy it. But I didn't have the money to buy it. So first off, it was supposed to be a source deal. Yep. Then I was going to buy it, but I didn't have any money to buy it. And then it was like, do I buy and sell it because I'll make good money? Because I'm buying it for, at that time, 197, worth 330, or do I buy and keep it and refinance it because I can pull pretty much all my cash back out and go again. And we were pulling in about 3,200 in rent. So, it's making really good cash. Yeah. So actually, I had a very first world problem of, do I keep it and then have long-term benefit, or do I sell it and really to pull out a good sort of 70, 80 grand chunk? It was quite a difficult decision.
Yeah. How did you decide then what to do?
Gut in the end. I mean, we had debates in the team. Ash was telling me to sell it because, I was at the growth stage of my portfolio. So whilst on paper, by that point, I was officially a millionaire, there's about £3.50 in the bank, you know what I mean? And you're just like, first thing you do, you wake up, you check your phone for the bank account because you're running things far too tight. And I don't advise people to do this, but as you're growing, you probably know yourself, you run things really, really tight.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it?
Scary, yes, So and also the location's amazing. Amazing. It's so close to the city centre. It's right over a river. You walk into town over a bridge. or city, you know. And I'm by nature a keeper, even though I've done loads of buy to sells. And Ash was being much more sensible. He was like, sell it, make a good chunk of money, and don't have these sleepless nights. And I was like, no. So I kept it. But she initially wanted 197, but I ended up buying it for 203 because it took her 9 months to find a house to move to with the dogs. So we just babysat that deal the whole time.
Yeah.
And then she was like, would it be okay if I got 203 just because I do need this money for the next house? And there was enough in it for us, so go for it. Yeah.
Do you think part of the reason that you got that deal is because you were babysitting that deal and you had that relationship with her?
Yes. And the estate agents, well, first off, the estate agents, we phoned at the right time. As much as you'd love to say, we got a great reputation, and you know, we have bought lots of deals, you know, we've done well over 200, but the estate agent, we just phoned them at the right time. And they were like, come and see this deal. And then you don't phone and then just go, right, 4 days later, I'll go see it. It's like, I phoned you, within half an hour, I'm out at the property. You know, an hour later, I've put an offer in, and 2 hours later, I've bought it. So I think it was our action. And then the estate agent said, look, these people will stick by you. So yeah, we got it. And probably the estate agent didn't want to tour the property that often with people because it was so steady.
Yeah, they're just like, no, I don't want to go there. This lady is desperate to buy this property. Let's just let her have it, and we'll just drop it out a little bit. Yeah,
yes.
Amazing. So then you've got this property. You've decided to keep it.
Yes.
What did you do with it?
Turned it into quite a top end HMO. So I spent 42 grand on the renovation. It was a fixed price contract with my builder. I put in 5 bathrooms, of which one's a shared bathroom, but basically it's only for one room. And then 4 are en suites. Now I have to tell you that one of the rooms, it's quite a small bedroom with quite a nice ensuite. I mean, because I was just determined to have as many ensuites as possible, because my target is working professionals. And by the time you're 25, you don't want to be sharing a bathroom with anyone, do you? Or 23.
No. And I feel as well I've seen a massive influx of people doing HMOs. The ones with ensuites, you'll always fill them. Always fill them. It's the ones without the ensuite that take more viewings, and then sometimes you even have to drop the price when it's quieter. So if you can, I always ensuite everything.
Definitely.
Everything.
Totally agree. So even the guy or the girl that's got that room and then the bathroom's down the corridor, that really is her or his bathroom, really. You know, you can't technically say it is, but there's nobody else going to use it.
Yeah.
So and we made sure all the shared space was correct. We always put in top and bottom for 5 people. We put in a top kitchen unit and a bottom kitchen unit. We put in 2 fridge freezers, either a double oven and a 27-litre microwave, or 2 ovens, kind of thing. And I hate doing this because I'm a gardener myself, but then we just basically cemented the back garden. It's a real shame. You know,
no, it's not. Not in a HMO. It's not a shame in a HMO at all.
I know.
Yeah, but
it's tidy, isn't it?
Yeah, what are they going to... I think the thing with HMO, you've got to get to grips with how the space is going to be used. And I think sometimes a lot of people don't.
Yes.
So simple things like putting something at the back door where the people smoke so they can put the faggots in it instead of the drain.
The drain, yes. Yeah,
because they're going to put it in the drain, so just put something there, like a flower pot.
Yes.
And paint it white leave the top so it looks like a bloody cigarette. It just helps.
Yes, I agree.
So
42 grand, and I think it took 12 weeks to do.
Wow.
And I always buy loads of insulation because obviously I'm heating them later on. And this is terrible because I am really quite experienced. But I went up there a few years later, or maybe a year later, and realised the lads hadn't actually rolled the insulation down.
Oh, no.
And that's terrible, people. Don't not check that. And for some reason, I hadn't put my head above and checked it. So all the insulation was there. It's all in big rolls, just needed to be rolled out.
Oh, yeah, but that's a job that nobody really likes doing.
Oh, I know, but still I should have checked it. So what I'm doing with this deal is I'm highlighting loads of things that go wrong.
Yes, so now that people have got a little nugget there, that they know now what they're doing when they're looking at it. So this became a HMO. How was this deal funded?
Because I didn't have any money. because it wasn't supposed to be a deal that I was buying. I was selling it as a source deal. So I funded it 100% with private investor, one investor who lent me the whole 197,000.
Wow.
And the refurb.
Wow.
It's not an interest rate, and I won't quote the interest rate. It's not an interest rate I would advise anybody to do.
I've been there, Susannah.
Yes, eye-watering, really. Yeah. But at the same time, and so because I already had houses, and I actually had an ongoing relationship with this chap, I'd met him at one of my local property meets. In fact, I'm going for lunch with him next Tuesday, not because we're working together financially anymore, just because I really like him. And we've done quite a few deals by this point. So he had basically got to the point, he was like, Suze, I'm going to give you 600 grand every year. Could you please spend it and hurry up?
Wow.
Okay. So he and I had that relationship, that financial relationship for 5 years. So effectively, although it was the same 600 grand, he lent me 3 million. And he basically was like, could you please use this money as fast as possible so that I get interest? Yeah. And then of course I'm like, and could I please give it back to you as fast as possible so that I don't need to pay interest? So what we had was a private mortgage drawn up by his solicitor, but basically an off-the-shelf agreement.
Yep.
Personal guarantee, so I'm pinned to the wall.
Yeah.
And then charges, floating stroke equitable charges on other properties I had, as well as a first charge on this property, because of course it was a private mortgage. Yeah. So I'm personally guaranteeing it, so I'm completely stuck to the wall. He's got first charge in it, but he's not a developer. He wouldn't know what to do with it anyway, really. He'd throw it into an auction. And then the second charge is just to make it up in case, I fell under a bus. Yeah. And then a break clause at 8 months. And oh my God, I hit that break clause every time. Get it in, get it out, get it renovated, get it rented, get it remortgaged, gone again.
Yeah.
And give me
because
money back.
You never want to be getting to that position. It's a scary position. I've never even got close like yourself, but I don't know how I would cope with that if I did.
Yes. So really what my thinking was, the first year's rent was, the profit is really his interest.
Yeah.
Because when I look at the interest rate, sometimes I would feel a bit kind of, but at the same time, that to have that facility is marvellous. And of course, we had no arrangement fees or anything like that. So it looked higher than maybe like a normal bridge would be, because it was. Yeah. But then, you pick up the phone and you say, I want to do this deal. And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And the money's there within 24, 48 hours. Yeah. You don't get any fees. And it's an ongoing personal relationship. So I just kind of went, well, you know what, first year rent, that'll be his, or not, but first year income.
That is a really, really good way of looking at it. I've never looked at it that way. So I have.
It's hurting.
Yeah, I have pretty much the exact same situation. Ex-developer who said, do you know what? The people making the most money in property are actually the people loaning it. So sold a huge portfolio and loans money. 24 hours I can have the money. Never ever thought of it first year's profit. That is the best way.
It allows you, I don't know, because I ended up kind of going, God, this guy's charging a lot. And it just, it keeps your mind going, do you know what? I'm just doing work for 1 year for him. The rest of it, I'm doing it for me. Okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and you've still got that. So with this one, you decided to create a HMO, so it's going to be cash flowing. So even after the first year, doesn't matter then it's yours.
Exactly, for then on out. So it's always bought in my name, always with a private mortgage from him, with a personal guarantee and a first charge from him. And then he took equitable floating charges and a couple of other properties, really just in case he had to fire sale this, in case I fell under a bus.
Isn't it fun though when you go to the solicitors and you do the whole independent legal advice, and you've done it so many times, and you sit there and they just, this, and they sit there and they read every single, and you're like, yep, nothing's changed since the 3 weeks ago when we did the last one. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you just go on. Yes. Oh, and just to let you know that if you do default on this, then they will come after you. Yes. And there's a float. Yes.
Yeah. We know. It's basically, if you default, you're screwed. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Basically, they will come after you for everything you've got. Okay. Fair enough. I agree to that.
Yes.
Let me sign, but they're not from our world, are they?
No, they're not. No, bless them.
It's very, very, very difficult. So what happened then during the refurb on this one? Did it go to plan?
Do you know it's about the only thing that did?
Wow.
Yes. Fixed contract with the guy that I'd worked with before. except that his men obviously didn't do the roll down. And actually, apart from the fact that we had to, we used it a lot. We used it a lot because we were still doing investor days. So every 2 weeks, on a Monday, we don't do them anymore, but because we don't want investors anymore. But every 2 weeks from a Monday, from 2 o'clock till 6 o'clock, we do an investor day. Come to one property. And we'd have a tea urn, a 30 quid tea urn. You've made it in property when you've got a 30 quid tea urn, and plastic cups or paper cups and packets of biscuits. And people would come from all over the country, and they pay us 20 quid on Eventbrite, because you need to get them to pay something. It's not the money. Beyonce, if you liked it, you should put a ring in it. So they would turn up, and we'd put up a little projector in the corner, and we'd say, well, we're a sourcing business, and you can also do some deals with us. And so we wouldn't do it in an office, because at that time we didn't have an office. At that time we were working from my house, and then we worked from a flat I owned, and then from a house I owned, then from a flat I owned. And then the house said, get out, there's too many of you. And I'm like, okay. So then we bought the office. So we would every 2 weeks, we'd use it as an example of one of the deals. So it was, at the same time as renovating it, you're also bringing a group of 25 people in to see it. So when the guys were renovating it, we'd actually site ourselves on another property and then walk or drive people to this property to see it and then go back again. So yeah, apart from the fact they had to take up all of the floorboards downstairs, and the guys didn't, I think, to be honest, they forgot. They didn't roll everything. That actually went quite well. The only other thing was my builder tried to make I said there was one room that's really relatively small with an ensuite. Proportionately wise, it's not quite right. And I literally was like, I'm sorry, Simon, you've got to move that wall by 5 centimetres. Well, in the nicest way, he'd made a very, and what it was, so normally he's very good and great working with them. But so there's no negative comment here, but what he'd done which is understandable, was he'd made it easy to make the bathroom. I was like, no, the bathroom just needs to be a mental bathroom. It just to be, I have a bathroom, tick. The bedroom needs to be bigger. That wall has to move. It was only 2x4, so it was okay. So that was the only thing where we just sat down, and rather than going, Simon, you got to do it, I was like, well, what are your thoughts, Simon? Because this is the size of the bed, and I understand why you've done it. I was a bit raging inside, but I understand it's going to be easier for your plumber, but really that's got to be moved. So the build wasn't too bad. I've only fallen out with 2 builders, and they weren't.
Because this is one thing that I know that people will and always do struggle with, is handling builders.
Yes.
Quick top tip then for people listening, watching, on handling a builder.
Okay, recruit first. So take a step back. For every one builder, we probably interview, for a short list of 10, we interview between 100 and 150. Okay, so and we want to get your buildings insurance, and if you haven't got buildings insurance, you're off the list, because you can't provide the paperwork, or you haven't got it. And then I want to interview you to make sure I can get on with you. And so you've, within that, then you've probably got 1 or 2 rotters within a pool of 100 that you're still talking to. Do you know what I mean? If you had 100, you've gotten rid of 10%, you're down to 1% of frustrating people. So with this guy, he had a lot of pride in his work. I mean, he would occasionally, smash it out a little bit. Should we just say that? Like the rolls upstairs, it didn't surprise me. So I would talk to him every day, but I wasn't like, do this, do this, do this. I was more like, this is what we need to do. Sorry, let's go back. So then I had a written spec of exactly what was needed, a very clear contract, a fixed price. So there was no messing around. It wasn't, 42 grand, that's not big enough to put in pentals in my opinion. And we walked around the property, and we crisscrossed, you'll have done this loads, crisscrossed where all of the plugs are going to go, where all the sockets are going to go. We wrote up where the walls are going to go for the en-suites. So there was a physical understanding as well as a written understanding of exactly what was going to happen. Stuff like white, don't cut in, all that stuff, so that you're not paying them extra. You're not doing magnolia then white because it's faster. And then I ordered things like the tiles. I got them from wallsandfloors.co.uk because it's a lot cheaper. Stuff like that. So he had a physical understanding of what was going to happen, and then I didn't mess with it apart from that 1 5-centimetre wall. Sorry, which is very unusual that I mess with stuff once it's on. And then I would speak to him pretty much every day and check in, and I would be on site for minimum 4 times a week, just quickly, just briefly, but just checking in with him. And I would often, and if there was any kind of problem, he'd go, Suze, I got a problem. And then I wouldn't try and solve it. I'd go, and I'd wait. And then his brain would go, but what we could do is this or this. I'm like, oh, okay. Now, maybe I already thought of that, maybe I didn't. But by him coming forward with it, it allows him generally. So basically I shut up, which is unlike me.
Yeah, I do the exact same. My favourite builder who I use is 6'8". He's about this wide, ex-prison officer, who just looks mean, and exactly the same. But he's the nicest guy. I absolutely love speaking to him, and I do that exact. He actually says working on my jobs is the easiest ever, because I genuinely, when he rings me with a problem, he's like, "You don't care, do you?" I'm like, "No, I do care. I just don't speak to you about it. I let you come to the way of doing it that you think is going to be best. And if I think, okay, it is, then I will go, yeah, right, do that." And most of the time, it is.
Yeah.
It's just, they just haven't thought of it straight away.
Yeah. And by you giving the space to go, what are your thoughts? What do you think's best here? How would you fix this? What do you think? And then shutting up. It really... they come through, and then the other way that I'd handle him, if you want to call it handling him, I would. It was really sweet to see, actually. I mean, again, a bit like your guy, bit of a hairy guy, like scar on the face and all the rest of it, and I mean that with kindness. And I would just compliment him every now and again, not all the time, but when he'd done a really good piece of work, I'd be like, "Oh, mate, Simon, that was fantastic," and you would see him blossom because he actually really liked his work. Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that. One of my favourites is if you are going down to site and it's, when they're going to be taking a break. If it's not between a break, nip through McDonald's coffee, the drive-through, grab a few coffees for the lads and just give them all a coffee. You're doing a smashing job. Here you go, lads, what do you want?
Yes.
And actually, when I did a project, I actually had a tenant working at McDonald's, and he used to pay his rent through the window of McDonald's.
Oh, fabulous.
All the hours. And he's like, "Oh, where are you going?" "Oh, I'm going to site." "Oh, how many lads have you got working there?" "I've got 8 at the minute." "Oh, do you want 8 coffees?" Yeah, okay then. I'll have all the stickers off all the coffees. But they love it. The trade love McDonald's coffee. Love it.
Yes.
Little nibble there.
But I think the important thing was this guy liked work. And this guy and so the builders I like are the ones, when you interview them, they genuinely glow is probably the wrong word for a bunch of builders, but they inflate with enjoyment talking about their work. And this guy was the same.
It's that finished article. They love seeing that.
Yes.
So many people like smashing stuff up. The gold is the ones that like putting it back together again.
That's right. And have a tidy site.
Yes. Oh my God, yes. That is the key.
Yes.
So whatever you do, if it's clean, it's so much easier because you haven't got plumbers falling out of electricians, etc. Plaster, everyone. It's just so much smoother.
Yes, there's not hurting guests. And then the other thing that I always do is put in part of the contract that they're going to collect the IKEA furniture, bad luck lads, and they're going to build it. Yeah, I know. It's part of the contract, isn't it?
Well, you're a little bit crueler than me. I have it delivered and then they build it.
Oh, well, that's nice. But what I mean is they're not psychologically turned off. They're still like, we still got to do this. And then you pay the payment schedule, you agree whatever the payment schedule is, and you never, you do it. And then the snagging, at least retain 10%, if not a little bit more. Yeah. But it's not okay for, so as soon as they say, "Suze, we're signed off," I would definitely expect to pick some stuff up and snagging. But it's my job, as soon as he's told me that the snagging's ready to look at, it's my job to get down there really fast. I can't leave it 3 days. Yeah. That's not fair. So I have to rearrange my diary to get it nailed as fast as possible. And so it's constantly on the phone, just going, "What else do you need? What else do you need?" Or, it's constant communication, isn't it?
Yeah. And do you know what? That's flowed through the whole of this interview. And I think success in property and business, it is constant communication. With whoever you're dealing with, whether that's so the agent and the vendor, constant communication, you babysat that deal. Then with an investor as well, you had a really good relationship and constant communication with them. And then with the builder. And then, so that then brings us right to the end results of the deal. What happened?
Oh, it's quite good. So it got revalued. So Mind I bought it for 203.
Yeah.
I spent exactly, because just before I came on, I was like, I need to look up my spreadsheet to make sure I've got the correct figure. I spent 42 grand on it. It got revalued there and then, Rick's surveyor, for 330.
Which is the exact amount you said.
Yes, and then, because this was a very up and coming area, so then I financed it 330 at 75% loan to value. I actually need to work that out. Isn't that terrible? I'll do that just shortly. Excuse me, sorry, that was the one figure I didn't get organised in advance. I'm so sorry. So 247. There we go. 247,500. So look, I bought it for two. If we ignore and I know they exist, okay, but let's ignore the fees, the lawyers, the stamp duties, the interest. Just talk about the building itself. I bought it for 203 and I spent 42, which is 245. And I got 75% loan to value of 330, so I got 247,500 out.
Wow.
So I got £2.5 to pay my lawyer's fees. I then obviously had to pay my interest for the first year and my stamp duty.
Yeah,
that's all right, isn't it?
Like you say, first year pays it, and then you're into it.
Exactly. So really, after year one, there's no money left back in, which is super. And it's been renting out at £3,265 per month ever since. Yes, it's constantly filled because the location's great. And then a couple of years later, it got revalued again at 450.
Wow, you are in a different world to me.
Well, we've talked about this before, haven't we?
We've had long chats about this, haven't we?
Yeah. It's Bristol. I mean, it's a southern city, a city centre, and that is the plus. So loads of folk are like, oh, I'm going to go up north because it's quite hard to buy in my area because A, it's expensive, and B, it's difficult. Yeah, but there's the plus.
Yeah.
You know, if it's expensive and difficult, the chances that the capital growth are going to go for it. You know, so it went from 330 to 450 literally within 2.5-ish years.
Crazy.
And that was again a Rick's valuation. Not bad.
So what was your biggest lessons on this deal then?
Oh, the simple one. You know, remember from the beginning, I was going to sell it on as a source deal, and I'd have made 5% of 203,000, so just over 10 grand. Keep every single thing you possibly can.
Yeah.
Even though I love a buy to sell strategy as well. So what? I'd have made 10 grand as opposed to owning something that's almost £500,000, that's bringing in over 3 grand a month.
Yeah.
You know, so keep everything you can, and those sleepless nights are worth it, I think.
I think that's a cracking lesson. I really do. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I think that's a wicked place to end this interview. I've loved doing this different format. I think it's so much nicer to find out a story about a property or a deal that people can actually learn from, instead of just me going, what do you do in property, and et cetera, et cetera. So,
and I've been in your office, so I come up to visit, so I know exactly that room, which is really cool. The
lovely lime green. And one of my members on my trading website gave me this because he works in TV production, and he was like, I'm sick of watching your videos with the light behind you, so I'm going to give you a blackout piece of film.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Matt, for that. So if people do want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you? How can they follow you on socials, etc., etc.?
I do quite a bit of it because it's fun and creative. So there's Instagram stories, there's Facebook, there's LinkedIn, there's Twitter. And then if they want to get in touch, either phone us or on our website, obviously, thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk. And then just give us a phone. Our phone number is on our website, and the team will book you in for a chat with me. Or email us, and again, our email's on our website, thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk. I quite like chatting, as you can tell.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm a big fan of the chatting as well. I will have this show edited anyway, and all of the links put below. It'd be good for the people watching and listening if they could tell us what their biggest takeaway was from this video or podcast. That'd be pretty cool. So I'm going to let you go now, Susannah. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks very much for having me. See you soon.
Bye-bye.